All right. We are ready to get underway with our interview. And our interview this morning is actually going to be a repeat, only because if you all recall, those of you who listen regularly, I interviewed this guest a few weeks ago, and we had to do a retake, which we're doing this morning, because we had to scrub that interview, and it was a dynamite interview. Absolutely loved it. I was getting a lot of feedback from you out in the listening audience about they could feel the energy of my guest through the telephone. And then there were some things that went on in that interview that we had to scrub it. So now we've agreed to do it again today. And if you felt the energy then, I'm sure you ought to be able to feel the energy now, only because this time she is live in the studio with me. The last time she was on the telephone, but this time she's live in the studio sitting right next to me here on the other microphone. So it is none other than Ayo Sekai. And you know this month of June has been Universal Right Publications LLC month. All of my guests this month have been members of the advisory board of Universal Right Publications. So we are rounding out the month with the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of Universal Right Publications. And again, it's Ayo Sekai. I have known Ayo now. It's going on. Let's see. When the show first started 2001, and I think I told you all this the last time. Show started 2001. Ayo was one of my first guests in this same studio that we're in right now. Ayo was one of my first guests whenever she had her first books that she had written. And we've always kept in touch since then, have been fantastic friends. And then she started the publishing company and she's working on her doctorate. She's just all over the place, a true Renaissance woman. And so she's back, and now we're going to talk today more about the company and being an entrepreneur and working on the doctorate and all those things that go along with it. So without further ado, someone who's near and dear to my heart, none other than Ayo Sekai. Ayo, good morning.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning, the Reading Circle. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for rising early to join me early here in the booth. So like I just shared, Ayo, like I said, has kind of been with me all along the way in terms of the show. She's followed the show. I've continued to follow her career choice or career path. And the show is about reading. So it is a natural fit that I would have her on the show talking about publishing. As a matter of fact, when I look on her website, when you go to her homepage, it says start reading. Now, this is good. Now, Ayo and I, both of us are into words. Both of us are into double entendre.
Absolutely.
Yes. So they're into, like, it's double meanings behind it. So it's not only start reading mean if you don't read more. It's start reading about universal right. So if you click the button that says see more, you start reading and you learn more as you go into each tab. So start reading mean if you don't read, you need to start or read more. And if you come to this webpage, you need to start reading more about universal right. So, all right. We move from being just an author. There's no such thing as just, and I tell people that all the time. But we've kind of progressed from being an author to like the CEO of a publishing company.
Yes.
How did that progression take place?
Okay, well, Mark, I mean, like you said, you know, you've known me for a very long time. And oh my God, I started publishing and writing, and then I started working for Random House and Kensington Publishing. I got a great opportunity. Somebody saw me and, you know, said, hey, you know, let me teach you a few things. And I got this great opportunity to learn the business from the ground up. And then one day when I was doing my master's degree, I said, you know, I don't really want to teach anymore. You know, I'm a certified secondary language arts teacher, and I taught, you know, middle school, 8th grade. You know, you're a middle school principal.
Right. There you go.
You know, so, you know, we have that in common as well, that we love education and we love children and we love to teach. You know, so I was teaching and I said, you know what, even though I love to teach, I am not exactly the teacher type.
I understand. No, and that's a very important point. We'll talk about that a little later. But she's, I mean, right on point, and they made the right decision, because if you realize that, it's best to do something else. That doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but it is better, and we'll talk about that a little bit later because I'm going to let you go. Keep going.
Yeah, because so what I mean when I say I'm not a teacher type is I love teaching and I love educating, but this is not the way for me to do it. The structure, the administrative parts of it, the lesson plans, the team meetings, the being stuck in the four walls. It just wasn't me. My personality was just way too big. And I wanted to do so much more. I wanted to touch more than the kids in my classroom. I wanted to touch more than just who was in my school. I wanted to be out there meeting people, talking to people and principals like you, and finding out ways how I can reach students across the board, because I had great teachers. I had great educators in my life, great mentors. As a matter of fact, as I say that, and I know I'm going to probably be all over the place, I was going through one of my old memory books. You know how you keep things throughout high school and, all your little letters and your little notes and stuff like that. And one of my mentors, Carla, she was a great jazz singer, and she was a mentor in my high school. And when I went off to college, she always used to write me letters, encouraging me and, telling me to keep smiling and, being, amazing and stay focused. And, because, you go to college, you're all alone and you get a little bit sad, or you're down, or you feel, you're trying to find your way. And she was so awesome. And I found this amazing letter that she wrote me, and I took a picture because I was going to say I'm going to send it to her surviving husband, because he contacted me and told me that she had passed, and that was really devastating to me. But that's the kind of teacher I wanted to be. I wanted to be that teacher, that years later, 15, 20 years, I am remembered, that I have touched somebody so much deeper, and I knew I couldn't do that in the classroom. So when I decided I was going to take the company to the next level, I decided, let me see if I can really do this. And I went to Polk County School Board, the first actual, whole school board that gave me a chance to see if my company could really do this. And they gave me a lot of money to publish 2 books, Got Math. And I don't remember what the second one is, but if you go on the company, on the website, they're there. And now, I donate those to libraries and schools and stuff like that, with some requirements, of course, so, in support of that school. Yeah.
So it's one thing, because you said you were working for a publishing company. Mm-hmm. As well as doing education. Now, it's one thing to work for them. It's another thing to get the ideal in your head. I want to have I want to have one of my own. I want to have a company.
Yeah.
What did you have to go through to what does it take to start a company, particularly a publishing company? What are the hoops?
Mark, I think that's a natural progression. If you think about it, you see people who are actors, they naturally progress into directing, or producing. If you are a singer, all of a sudden you see them, producing music and open up music company. The trick is to find something that you love to do, something that you're good at, and make it work for you.
But I guess what I'm getting at is the logistical hoops that you have to go through in terms of.
You can't tell you the logistical hoops, Mark. You can't tell somebody how to make a publishing company. You want me to tell you how what I've learned for 20 years.
So I'm going into business for myself, because I think entrepreneurship is extremely important.
Yes.
And a lot of people are afraid to do it. That's where I'm trying to get to. In terms of what made you make that leap? You know what? I'm just going to do this. I have to fill out this, fill out that, contact this one, contact that.
Oh my goodness, but it didn't work like that for me.
Okay.
It's almost like saying writing. Like most people are like, oh my God, how did you write a book? Tell me how you wrote a book. Do you get up every morning and did you write from 5 to 9? Or did you, schedule out your time? Or do you wake up early in the morning? Or do you do it late at night? Everyone has their own unique thing, and as an entrepreneur, you have to feel that. That's like an energy. It has to be in you. The same way I could say, I'm not a teacher, that need to be in the classroom. That's not me. The same way, I could say, I feel like I can do this. This is something I'm good at. I love it. I love to touch books. I love the pages. I love to read the words. I love, the nuances, the meeting of the people, the picking out the book, the acquisition aspect of it. I love looking through the Library of Congress and getting a catalog number. I love getting the ISBN. I love the different nuances.
That's all part
and
of the
meeting,
process that she's talking
absolutely.
about. Yes.
But these processes are rigorous,
right,
and time consuming,
right.
and and if you get bored, I've done tons of jobs, Mark. When you're in college, you go work at McDonald's, or you work at, a temp agency doing typing or taking notes or whatever. We all know what we're good at and what we're not good at. Oh, that's boring for me. I actually know a girl who is a brilliant woman, and she said she hates reading. She never reads. That for that person, a book in publishing is not going to be for her. However, she is a great speaker, and she loves being out in the outdoors. She's a great instructor. That's good for her. So you really have to know in yourself, what is it that you're good at? What do you like to do? What do you love? Do you feel the passion? Because if you try to do something that I'm doing just because it looks cool, it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if I try to do what you're doing, Mark, you're phenomenal. I'm in the studio. You're set up. You've got all this stuff going. You're multitasking. You're a whiz at what you're doing. I don't see me coming in here and going, oh my God, that looks so cool and it looks so awesome, which it does. But this is not my thing. I probably would fail at it. That's why they say the imitator can never master the master. So that's why you shouldn't be afraid to teach people or share your insight or show what you do, because if people are trying to imitate you just to imitate you, they will never really master it. So it's okay. But it's talking about the nuances of publishing. Of course, you got to get a name, and you got to register with the state, and you got to pay a lot of money to keep up those registrations. You got to make sure that you're, once you get the books, you have to, have all the books in print, make sure that they're available to book buyers, and these are all cost intensive things, which is why with self-publishing, the vanity publishing presses, which a lot of people are doing right now, because traditional publishing houses have made it very difficult to get publishing, because the traditional publishing houses are the ones that were there for history, throughout history. You go, you get a contract, you sign a contract. Sometimes you may get you may get, what did they call it? Like an advance payment or something like that, and then you'll get royalty later on. But with a vanity press, you pay for play. If you pay me some money to publish your book, I will get it published for you. And that's the thing that's going on right now, because with traditional publishing houses, you really cannot, you have to prove your worth now. You have to prove that you can make a certain amount of sales, that you have a certain following, that you have a certain type of market that you're appealing to, because they have to see where they're going to get their money back, because they're investing up front, in you and what you do and your work. And therefore, they have to see where they're going to make that money back, because, of course, you have to cover the cost of the publishing and the ISBN and the imprint and all of that stuff, and pay the overhead and pay the state taxes and all the registration fees, so they have to cover that back. Now, with pay for play and the vanity presses, you pay them $5,000, they're going to publish you. It doesn't matter if your work is good or not. It doesn't matter what the topic is. It doesn't matter if it's well edited, well reviewed, or trended. You pay some money, you will be published.
So the publishing company is up and running. We've kind of gone through those logistics, and now you actually have to get some books in there. Talk to me a little bit about what type of books do you publish, or do you have a certain genre you're looking for, a certain type of book you're looking for, or if somebody comes to you and they're interested in universal right, kind of like what is universal right about?
Okay, well, again, going back to what we talked about, I love reading, I love writing, and that for me is a passion. That's my pastime. I walk around with a book every day. I have a big thick book in my bag right now, and of course, doing my doctorate, I've got tons of books and reading that I have to do all the time. So for me, going to school was a cheating, very, very expensive, way of loving school, and wanted to get suggestions. on how to read certain books and from professors that I would probably never pick up, or books that I would never go into the bookstore and pick up on my own. This way I was able to get books and recommendation from syllabi and all of that stuff. And as I went through the process, I realized I really love education. I really love, what that does to me, the expanding of my mind, the broadening of my horizons, the imagination, just being able to percolate my senses and, the creativity that comes out of that, and transitioning into traditional academic publishing. So that's what I do with Universal Right Publication. The name of the company, Universal Right Publication, as in my universal right, to write. WRITE.
So this is again back to the double entendre, the double meanings. I mean, you can, going back to that again, like she says, universal right, WRITE, but she also said it's her right. RIGHT to publish. So again, there's double meanings there as you read them. You may not pick up on them. We do because we're into words. But so again, I know like there's a selection of books you already have.
That's right.
That you already published. Is there a certain type? I mean, because I know you focus a lot on the African diaspora.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about that. Is that like your only focus, or like your main focus, or you intentionally or consciously decided to focus there, or what's going on there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about my mentor and my advisor, Molefekete Asante, in this. So my company has been around since 2001. Okay. And you said you started doing this around the same time. Was it 2001? Yeah, 2001, 2002. Right. And I started it off to market myself, as a writer. And when I decided I was going to publish those books at, for Polk County School Board, that was about 2009 when I transitioned the company into an academic publishing company. So I wanted the focus to be academic, teaching other students and peers and getting that educator part of me involved. However, once I started my doctorate, about 2015, I met Molefekete Asante. As a matter of fact, I think I may have met him a little bit earlier, but we didn't really connect. And then when I started my doctorate, I went and I met him because I wanted to talk to him about a paper I was doing on him. And when I met him, he basically said to me, "Wow, you have a whole publishing company? Where have you been all my life? This is amazing, And so we sat down and we started talking and strategizing, and he gave me, some test works. And he was phenomenal. Now, Molefekete Asante is who we call, Baba Asante, father of Afrocentricity. And what Afrocentricity is agency. It's my agency to be strong, to be powerful, to attain my language, my culture, my education. Anybody can be Afrocentric. Now, Afrocentricity go against a lot of rhetoric these days, especially now that we see, in the administration. It talks about, every culture, every people from whatever background have the right to survive and to build families and to work. So I believe in Afrocentricity, and I believe I'm Afrocentric. As a matter of fact, when I talked to him and I found out what Afrocentricity is, it resonated so deeply with me, because I'm like, oh, wow, I've always been Afrocentric. I just never knew what to call myself. I never knew what it was. And, that actually took a turn and started building and settling and basically instituting itself within the concept of my publishing company. Because I'm also studying Black politics, and international relations as a political scientist at Howard University. And for me, it basically really gave me a purpose and a direction. So yes, I am purposefully choosing to focus on Afrocentric Black scholarship. To give voice to our people, to our scholars. We do know that, if you are a professor, there was a time, I think about maybe almost 15 years ago, they thought that when the Kindle came out and iPad came out and ebooks came out, that books were going to go away. They were like, oh, wow, there's no longer going to be books. Books are going to be phasing out. Well, not. That is not happening. It will never happen. The Department of Education is one of the most powerful, agency in this country because it manages all of the schools. You have to be accredited. You have to be accredited to teach. You have to have, teachers and students and books and printers and books to study from and books to teach and all of this stuff. And all of this stuff is accredited. And that's why books will never go out of style, because you need to teach books. And therefore, professors also need to be, certified. And so if you're going to teach and you're going to be a professor, you have to be published if you want tenure. You have to be published if you want to be promoted. You have to be published if you want to go into the academy. How are you to be published if you're not going to write a book?
So are you telling us those are the type of books you publish?
Yes, absolutely.
So professors can reach out to you.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. There is a part on my website right here where you can actually browse the books, by classes, by course. You could send me your syllabus and you can get a reader's copy, complimentary. I know several professors already who are using some of my books in their classrooms. This is the company you come to if you want to find out how to teach Afrocentric Black scholarship, where you give voice to, a group of people that is voiceless.
See, now, again, you've heard me say this month is Universal Right Publications Month, and it's dual. It's an opportunity for us to promote the company as well as the folks who've been on here are authors in their own rights. So they're all authors that have been on the reading circle, but either they're published with Universal Right or either they serve on a board with Universal Right. So we have the opportunity to promote the company as well. And that's why we're really this morning, compared to last time where Denise, shall I say Ayo, because I know her as Denise and Ayo, as Ayo and I really had gotten into her background history and things, this time we're staying focused on the company because we really want you to understand the Universal Right Publications is out there. That's for one. And secondly, the work that they do. And I'm looking at the website now. We're going through some of the books. I see 17 Dry Seasons Made It. I remember that.
That's right.
I pre-read. I was supposed to be editing it. I didn't get a chance to edit it like I want to, but I did read the story. It is an interesting little story.
Yes.
It's a YA book. We talked about that when Cheyenne was on. 400 Years of Witnessing. Did that one? I mean, that one, I saw that one being really pushed lately.
That's right. Well, those two are two new releases.
Aha.
Okay.
Okay. Because I knew the 400 Years, I said, okay, I've seen that one come up multiple times now. So that was just released.
Right. But that one is very significant because it's also published by Maleficati Asante. And it's poetry, an Afrocentric historical poetry,
right.
And I'm a poet and I write
right.
and I spit, and this kind of stuff, the only way you could write this stuff is if you've traveled and lived and read, you've had to be well read, and know about the historical scholars, the ancestral scholars, the ancestral history to really understand some of the work that's in here. And they really speak to your spirit in a deep way. And it's also reminiscent because 1619 was the first year of enslavement when the first enslaved Africans came to the United States what landed in Virginia, and today's 2019, so it's 400 years.
Wow.
Celebration and emancipation on freedom on that book. So it's a very powerful book.
Well, I just started reading a book yesterday, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Mm-hmm. And the introduction right off the bat, the author is hitting. I think her Dr. Joy, something with a G, I forget. But again, this is in that same line, 400 years of, and the premise of her book is there are a lot of African Americans who say we should just, all right, we get it, slavery was bad, let's not keep focusing on it. Mm-hmm. Then there's a set of us that said, no, you better learn about that to understand it so that it doesn't happen again.
That's right.
And that's where her premise is coming from. Like, don't get caught up in that nonsense of, well, okay, that was our story, but we're not going to focus and we're not going to talk about that anymore. No, let's not get. So again, books like 400 Years of Witnessing, 17 Dry Seasons, even though it's a young adult book, it still gets into the African.
Absolutely.
It gets into that. And I'm seeing here, and I remember whenever I talked to Cheyenne, we were talking about Bumblebee, Longhorn Needle, and Dragon of Kingdom and Slayer. We talked about that when she was on. But I'm seeing Untamed, seeing the dramatic genius of Charles Fuller, African Pyramids of Knowledge. Yes, the pyramids. I'm not wearing mine today, but normally I wear a pyramid. The lynching Barack Obama. Yeah, they're doing that real good. But you know what? The more they try to lynch him, the better he looking.
Exactly. I mean, and if you read the subtitle, it said lynching Barack Obama, how whites tried to string up the president. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because, most people see the big title and and people get offended. But that's the point.
Right.
You should be offended.
Right. It ought to make you stop and think. And yes, you ought to be. It's right. Revolutionary Pedagogy, the American Demagogue. And then we will tell our own story. And then the one that we talked about, I believe one time, everybody, for the most part, in News Chasers, we also had on the show. That book is Daryl Taiwo Harris, News Chaser, and it's about the rhetoric about our current president that we have now. Now we're getting ready to go into another election season. It's going to be real interesting. Afrocentric before Afrotricity or Afrocentricity.
And that's my book.
All right. So these are the ones that are in the lineup, and there's more to come. But again, the companies out there, it doesn't necessarily mean because she has these books that she won't publish anything else.
That's right, because we have 3 imprints.
Right.
Right? So we have the Young Adult imprint, the
right.
CBS series, which is the Cheyenne book series.
Right.
And then we have the academic imprint, which if you're a professor or you have a PhD or you are in a scholar anyway, and that just means you don't even have to have a PhD or be a professor. As long as the work is cited, theorized, and written in an academic format, like you have APA format,
right.
MLA format, Chicago style, it has to be cited and theorized. And that's what changes it into an academic focus. That's what makes it more geared towards, teaching and, education. So, as long as you write it that way, then it could fall under the academy. And then we have the UWP imprint. And the UWP imprint is where we publish just about anything. If you wrote a poetry book, or if you wrote that's not cited or theorized, or if you wrote, a cookbook, or a coffee table book. That's where we have a little bit more wiggle room, but we don't do as much of that as we do the academic side.
Now, since Ayo is in the studio with me, we do have the opportunity to call. Because normally, whenever I have my guest on the telephone, I share with you all this all the time. I really don't want to drop somebody while I'm trying to finagle with the phone, because as you heard Ayo say, I love being a one-man show. Trust me on that one. Because you need a co-host? No, I don't. But in any event, I love doing a one-man show. I love it. But it can get, in terms of trying to keep everything up and running, it can get cumbersome. So if I have my guest on the phone, I don't want to be trying to get somebody on and off, because somebody's going to get dropped. And I really don't want that. But when they are in the studio, give us a call, 973-720-2738. If you have any questions for Ayo, we web stream all around the world. So regardless of where you are in the world, you can call. If you're up here in the northern New Jersey, New York area, we're on 88.7 FM radio. But again, the number is 973-720-2738. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that just because the phones don't light up don't mean people are not listening. Because I know people are listening, but I know how it is because I listen to radio and they give the telephone number out. I don't necessarily call either. But if you do have a question for Ayo about anything about the publishing company, how you can get in touch with her to have your book published by Universal Right, any of the books that we just talked about, give us a call, 973-720-2738. So not only is Ayo an entrepreneur, businesswoman, CEO, you heard her reference her working towards her doctorate. What's the doctorate in?
Political science. I'm doing a doctorate in political science at Howard University. And my focus, HBCU. HU, I have to represent. I'm sorry. And everyone know that Howard University is one of the top most prolific historical and longest running universities in the country. And funny enough, as an immigrant, being born and raised in Jamaica and coming to this country, I did not know what HBCUs were, and being raised in Brooklyn, nobody really told me. So I went off to white universities, which they call PWIs, predominantly white institutions. And so, to culminate my educational career at an HBCU has been a dream. There's just a different nuance to it. You're taught from an from an educational perspective, from historical perspective, you see beautiful young sisters and brothers all up and down the campus.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I mean, the pride, the joy.
Right. You know, it is a different experience. She's absolutely right. And I can attest to it from a couple perspectives. Years ago, whenever I was working in corporate, I had gone down to North Carolina Central University to be a guest lecturer. And I had never, at that time, this is going back in the 90s, maybe late 80s, I had never been on the campus of an HBCU.
Wow.
So I didn't know what it was like. And I stepped on that campus, Ayo. All the deans were African American.
Right.
All the students, for the most part, were African American. The department heads, and they were powerful. They started giving me their business card. I remember the head of accounting. Brother gave me his business card. You go. I mean, it was like, so then I get down and you talking about that, and I started seeing all that. I said, ooh, now had I gone to a HBCU, I might not have graduated. Because all those women were down.
People are beautiful.
It was. I mean, and then my daughters ultimately went to Delaware State University. They went to Del State, both of them.
Wonderful.
And I got a chance to visit that campus while they were in school. Same type deal. From the president down was African American. And it is a totally different feel. And I'm not taking anything away because I graduated from this university that we're sitting on right here twice. And I also graduated from Fairleigh Dickinson, another school in the state of New Jersey. So I'm not taking anything away from those.
And what you just said right now about, not taking anything away, that's Afrocentricity. You can love being black and love being, loving HBCU without taking anything from anybody else. You're just equally asserting your agency in who you are, and loving, part of yourself that represents you. And it doesn't demean anybody else in any way.
That's absolutely right. And so, I could not have said it better. And that's where folks really kind of get twisted or bent out of shape. They think if you're praising one, that you're denigrating the other. No. But what we are saying is we appreciate our experiences with folks who look like us, just like you appreciate experiences with folks who look like you.
Absolutely. And that goes back to that book that you were reading. Because that's the big thing that's happening now, right? People are like, oh, forget about slavery. That was in the past. It's not in the past. The Jewish Holocaust, that everybody remember, you have to talk about it. It's instituted in our culture. They don't let you forget it because that still impact the people today.
That's correct. Matter of fact, and we might have referenced this the last time, if not one of you all I talked about it with, or if not you, somebody else. With our Jewish brothers and sisters, they constantly have that mantra, never again.
That's right.
Never forget, never again. I mean, and that is instilled from birth.
That's right.
The story is constantly told. And see, again, as African Americans, we really need to do the same thing. We also need to understand our story did not begin at slavery. That's why I like the whole thing about you just said about the pyramids, about the knowledge, the African pyramids of knowledge.
That's right.
Our story did not begin with slavery. And now that's the mistake a lot of people make.
Absolutely.
That they think, well, that's where black people's story began. No, it's not. Our story is way before slavery. When you start talking about the invention of math and you start talking about all these things.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Greeks actually went to Africa to learn math and science and took it back to Greece. The difference between African people historically is that we never monetized our language. We freely shared our information and our history and our food and our culture and how we do things. That's who we are as a people. And we still see that today, as a historical memory. Of us as a people. Yeah. So, but other culture monetized it and structured it and put it in a different package and was able to sell it in a different way. But you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, our history did not begin with enslavement. And I really think it's important for us to be careful about how we talk about black people being slaves or black people were slaves. We were never slaves. We were enslaved. We were a people, a rich, beautiful, powerful, royal people who was put in an institution of enslavement. And we need to change the narrative. And going back to our power and word, we need to change the narrative, and, reverse how we see ourselves and the things that we say. Even things like her hair, like, oh my goodness, every time I go somewhere and people go, oh my God, I love your dreads. Your dreads are, and I cringe every time I hear it. I'm like, oh my God. And I would go, sister, stop. That's not what I have. And they would look at me like bewildered. And they were like, what? That's not dreads? Is that braids? I'm like, no. It's locks. It's locks. If you go back and you look through history, you talk about the pyramids, you see the Sphinx, Nefertiti, Cleopatra. They had their hair in locks long before we stylized it. They had their hair braided up and cornrowed, and all these beautiful, intricate things in the creative spirit of the African spirit, right? And that's all we've done. We've just allowed our hair to grow naturally and be what it is. It's a counter narrative. We have to change how we speak about who we are as a people and as a culture.
No, it really is. And, you got the African pyramids. They still haven't figured out how those pyramids were put together.
You can't.
Mathematically, they haven't figured that out.
Because the way we think has changed so much that it's skewed. If we're thinking about, things logically in a certain way, the way our culture is set up. And back then, historically, they thought upside down versus right side up or straight forward. Then, of course, you're going to get a different outcome.
No, without a doubt. So that's why, in terms of like the narrative that Ayo was just talking about, we really do have to help folks understand that the story did not begin. Like, slavery is a part of our story, but it's not the beginning of the story.
Nor is it the end.
And exactly. And so the book that I was just referencing about the post-traumatic slave syndrome, the author talks about her trip to South Africa, because I think she said she lives in Oregon. I believe it was Oregon. It was like one of the West Coast states. And she says her entire trip in South Africa, there was no feeling of she was black. She felt more racism in the airport at Oregon than she did her entire 6 weeks in South Africa.
That's right.
Like being in South Africa, being black was not a big deal. It was not an issue. The skin color was not an issue. I've also heard and Kenzo and I talked about this one, the comedian talk about that. The one from South Africa.
That's right.
The South.
Yeah.
He said. We even talked about, like, in South Africa, the word nigger has a totally different meaning than it does here. We have a historical presence from it based on how it was used historically here. But when you go to South Africa, the word meant something totally like gift or nice or something. I forget what it was. But and I'm Trevor. What's
Trevor Noah?
Yes. Trevor Noah. That's the comedian. He was the one. He was pretty much saying the same thing that this author was saying.
Love
that
him.
when you go there, this whole race thing is not an issue. This whole black thing, like, you're not like singled out or not ostracized because you're black.
No, you're not. As a matter of fact, when I went to Ghana and I got off the plane, I was like, oh my God, I'm home. Yeah, literally, because I'm like, it's so similar to Jamaica. Being born and raised in Jamaica, where blackness is not a thing.
Issue, right.
You're just black. Now, we do have like all that thing of colorism and all that stuff throughout history, but it's not a thing to be black. I got off the plane and I was like, oh my God. You see the bus, you see the people, you see the fruit stand, you see what in Jamaica we call the iglas, the people carrying the basket on their head and selling the juice and the suck and, the sugar cane that you can munch on it as you're walking by, because in Africa it's so hot. You're not going to see chocolate. That's why the people are so much healthier. Chocolate melt. Any kind of food that's melty or that needs refrigeration, you're not going to see that. So you get natural things from the earth. You get sugar cane, you get coconut, where they just chop off the top and you drink the coconut juice. And we all know that coconut juice is good for you. They sell that in the store. If nothing else, Eurocentricity has found a way, to package and sell everything. Even the pomegranate juice. Right. I was raised in Jamaica. It's called, the fruit is called a panganut, and we used to climb the tree and just take off a panganut. Now I go to the store and it's called a pomegranate.
Yes, that's correct. The pomegranate. That's right. Well, when you start going to the various Caribbean islands or other countries, what we have to pay for stuff that they just walk out of their yard and pull off the tree is absolute. It would blow your mind.
That's right.
When you start talking about ackee and
saltfish.
Right. When you start talking about that, right. That's things that they walk out of their back door and it's on the tree. Gunnep.
Right. Yeah, breadfruit.
Right. All those things here are extremely costly here in the United States. It really is. Well, I'm always amazed by that. Like, wow, you got like coconut. Like, you're talking about I didn't realize the coconut had another shell on the outside of the shell that we normally see in the store until I went to Jamaica.
Wow.
I didn't know that there was another shell on top of the shell that we see here in the store.
Right. And they have two types. You have the coconut that, with the brown shell that you can take it out and you cook it and you could bite it up and eat it. And then you have the jelly coconut.
Right.
So there's two types. The jelly one is the one when you cut off the top and you can drink the juice and then you scrape out the soft interior that's white and you eat that, and of course the ackee is the Jamaican national fruit. Right. You have to eat that because that's poisonous.
Right.
But I mean, even though I left when I was so young, I left when I was 13 going on 14. When I left, even though I left at that time, I remember how you can just walk on the fence, you see wild bush growing on the fence, but you have the Cersei, and if you're feeling sick or you have a fever, you go pick that bush and boil it, and you'll be okay.
They still do that.
Right.
They still do all of that.
Right. So it's, but the thing that I remember, I remember it is so much a part of her fabric that those things don't leave you. Right. I could walk out even here in the States and I could go, oh yeah, that's the Joseph coat and that's, the different type of plants and what the marigold, stand for, different things. Actually, if somebody give you a marigold in the islands, it actually means pain and suffering. It actually means grief.
Wow.
And, so you have all of these little things, cultural things.
Cultural, exactly. And see, I am convinced, and Ayo and I were talking about this because you hear me talk about all the time when I'm not doing radio, my day job is a school principal. Well, I was reassigned to another school this year where I'm going to be working with African American boys. And a lot of the stuff that we're talking about right now is going to be infiltrated into our teaching and the curriculum in that particular school because it's a young men's leadership academy where we're trying to take young men and turn them into prince, into king. Okay, I'm not talking about Prince the musician, even though he was talented as heck.
Amazing.
I ain't talking about that Prince. I'm talking about a prince like a prince and then into a king. And that's going to be like my objective there. And where I'm going with this is I'm a firm believer that if we would understand our history, some things we would change. Even what Ayo was just talking about in terms of the various plants and the fruit, some of that stuff, it's medicinal. A lot of the pharmaceutical stuff that we take is actually killing us. Those things that Ayo was just talking about, they will keep you alive. To this day, folks from Jamaica, when they come, they bring, I was like, how did you get to the airport with that? They bring those leaves you're talking about that we make tea out of.
That's right.
We make, we boil it and whatever ails you, it'll take it out of you.
The peppermint, the spearmint, that's all, they look like weeds growing in, your backyard.
Right. It is. And so, again, if we were to understand our history, because even with the plants and the words and everything is a part of our culture, a part of our history. And like you were talking about the monetization, unfortunately for us, and me and Kenzo talked about this as well, unfortunately for us, a lot of times our stuff is stolen.
That's right.
And it's monetized and made to look as if we had nothing to do with it.
That's
right. See, I'm being very nice the way I want to say it. I say it no. But if you ever look, and I told Kenzo this, if you ever look in the musical Dreamgirls, there's a whole segment on that.
Wow.
There's a whole segment musically on how our music was taken. And it's always kind of like flattened out, smoothed out. Like the rhythm is taken out of it. And there's a whole segment on that. But that was our song. We sang that first. And you'd never know it. A lot of the things that you're talking about, like the locks.
That's right.
Back in the 70s, I don't even know if you were born yet. There was this actress, Bo Derek. Bo Derek was Caucasian, one of our Caucasian sisters, and she wore braids. Now, black folks been wearing braids and locks and everything forever.
Right.
Now they did this movie called 10 with Bo Derek, and all of a sudden, everybody knew what braids were. Oh, braids. Oh. Like, but that... See, again, that was something that was...
Yeah, but the one good thing about that is that somebody brought it to the attention. That's the one good thing that came out of that. And then going back, you talk about the information, the history that's been stolen, going back to the fact that I am a political science student at Howard University. My specializations are black politics and international relations. And one of the things that you learn Oh my God. And Howard University does not give you anything. It's kind of like that traditional publishing versus the pay for play vanity publishing. There are certain schools that you go to, as long as you pay your tuition, you're going to get a degree. You know, Howard University is not one of those schools. You know, it does not matter how much money you have invested, how much time. If they do not feel you are qualified, if they do not feel that you have done the time, if they do not feel you have mastered your information, you will not get a degree from Howard University. They prepare you. About Chadwick Boseman, who graduated from Howard University, the guy that played Black Panther. Everybody knows Black Panther. He was the keynote speaker last year. The year before this past graduation at Howard University. And one of the things that he said is that Howard University prepares you to be a scholar. It prepares you for life. And when you go out there and people say certain things to you, you know your history. You know who you are. You are grinded and molded and put through the ringer, kind of like a diamond. When you see an original diamond, it just looks like a piece of black gold. But when they take it and they refine it and shine it up and mold it and break it, that's when you see the shine. That's what Howard University does to you. Okay. And so my specializations, Black politics and international relations, really put context to everything that I knew growing up. And, you know, kind of like intrinsically, you know, because in international relations, you know about the global South and the global North. You know how, you know, the great nations get together and just divided up Africa and decided what part was going to be owned by what. You know, so things like you talk about, you know, Aki and cocoa, you know, like let's talk about the coffee in Jamaica, the Blue Mountain coffee. Okay. You know, they take it and they refine, they said, okay, Jamaica, send us the coffee, and then they sell it back to us. You know, and then you get in debt because you cannot afford, they charge you for refining all of that stuff and you get in debt. You know, so what's called the global South becomes the third world countries. You know, and then you're now in debt and beholden now to these countries who's basically taken your raw material, refined it, and then sold it back to you. And then now you owe them, so you can't pay back, and then it becomes a cycle that's perpetuated. You know, China is the new colonial culture that's doing the same thing to Africa. It's like everybody goes to Africa, you know, and terrorize that country.
Because that's where the minerals and that's right. Where everything is. That's where everything emanates.
That's right.
But no folks don't want to admit that. But that's what the truth of the matter is.
But
that's
they know.
I know they know.
They know. You know.
So one of the things that I asked whenever Cheyenne was on the air was this whole notion of you now having a company, something to pass down to her.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
She says, because that's extremely important. I mean, again, as a part.
Talk about legacy.
Right. Based on how everything did shape up, and we're beginning to get there as more and more people are beginning to do it. But that wasn't how we were originally set up.
That's right.
So how important, the same question I asked Cheyenne, how important is it to you that you're going to have universal right to leave to her?
You know, you're talking about legacy and, you know, being an immigrant, born and raised in Jamaica, poor, first generation, college educated. You know, my parents don't have, you know, I think maybe a high school degree, maybe. I'm not even sure. You know, but being born and raised in Jamaica, you know, there's a struggle. And it's not just being Jamaican. I think it's most people, most African American, you know, throughout the world, throughout the diaspora, you know, it's a struggle. You know, usually your parents are the first ones to become a doctor or a nurse or whatever. And then, you know, you get to become a middle class, and then, you know, you grow on that, or you build on that, you know. That's what I'm trying to do. And it's funny because when I talk to Dr. Asante, he always say, you know, people are going to be talking about our story forever, you know, and he give me his work to publish because I am going to protect that work and that history, because in traditional publishing, after about 7 years, you know, you can go out of print. So if your book is not selling or whatever, the publisher at their disposal can decide to take it out of print and it will no longer be available. And you've probably seen examples of a book being out of print. You probably go on Amazon and you see something that's like $600. And you were like, what? How is that book that was $12 is now $600? It's out of print, you know, or they probably just have it up there randomly. Somebody's selling it randomly. Okay. And he's giving me this work because he's entrusting me with this work, that I am going to protect the legacy and the history of what he's writing and publishing, because after he transitions, and we all transition at some point, and I hope that will not be anytime soon,
soon. That's right. No time soon.
Because I need him. I need to learn more from him. when you transition, I will keep and protect that legacy. And for me being first generation college educated, I'm trying to now learn from that historical concept and pass that on to my children. When I started, Universal Right Publication, it was just a notion that I wanted to own something that would be mine, something that would belong to me, something that resonated with me, something that represented my passion and what I was good at and what I love to do, and that would help other people as well. And as she got older, and I think I shared you the story with you, she was gifted at like 3.5, so when she got to a point she wanted to read my fiction novels that were not very, very, child friendly.
Nice way to put it.
I realized that I didn't want to write those kind of books anymore. And if I didn't want my child to read, I didn't want somebody else's child to read it, and I started writing academic stuff. And she has become like really my mentor in so many ways because, when you have children, you're doing it for the first time. You don't know how to do it. There's no handbook, so she's basically my blueprint, I learned to be a better person from her. I learned to be a mom from her. And the more she loved, the more I loved. And the more she wanted, the more I wanted to do, And so, yes, now, she will be, the recipient of this. And, a lot of times, you pass things down to your children. They may not want it. That's another thing as well. But I really do believe that my children will protect this legacy and they will pass it down. And as a historical people, I hope it will never be sold, or bought into a bigger company or anything like that.
Well, you know what it's like. That's why I wanted to go down the entrepreneurial road. I applaud you in terms of starting something because so many of us may want to do something, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah.
We want to. And that's where I was kind of trying to go in the beginning of it. Like, okay, how'd you do it? You wanted, not only, like you said, I'm working for this company. I think I can do that. And you went out and did it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get past I think I can do it. I want to do it. And that's as far as it goes.
But it depends on how you think
yes,
about
it does.
it, though.
It does.
Because if you were to sit down, Mark, and go, oh my God, I want to do this thing. And then you start thinking about how big everything is.
Right.
It gets overwhelming.
Right. So that's a good point. You take it. There's
Chunks.
an old joke, right? There's an old joke about how do you eat an elephant, and it's like one little chunk at a time. You can't eat the whole thing at the same time. So you eat it in chunks, like she just said. So it's the same way with starting an adventure. You take it one step or one chunk at a time. But again, people like you just said, they feel like, oh my God, I'll never get, like, it's overwhelming. I can't believe the process. I can't believe everything I have to do. Is it going to be so? Because some people actually set themselves up to fail.
Right.
Some people, they go into it with the mindset, I know this is not going to work. Well, you just sealed it.
Right. And the thing is, it's not even just saying, I know that it's not going to work. It's also like going into it and going, oh my God, how do I do this? How this is too much. This is, and I started out when I was transitioning from just promoting myself into like a full blown publishing company. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And then somebody said, just, start doing it right now. And when it gets too big, we'll get somebody else to do it.
Well, one of the things, and one of the reasons we're even having this conversation, because Ayo created an advisory board.
That's right.
And
yes,
you've heard us say over this month of June, the advisory board members have been on. And each of us have different roles. But the main role overall is to get the word out about Universal Right Publication.
That's right.
But each of us within that, we have roles. Some of us have social media. Some of us have journalism. Some of us have PR, we have working with Ayo in terms of editing, so forth. So there's different roles for every advisory board member. But see, that's when she says she's now grown to that point where that's something that's needed.
That's right, because when I started the company, it was too big. It was this big, huge idea. Like, how am I going to do that? Because I know what it takes, right? But, you're right. I went back and I said, you know what, let me just go ahead and start one step at a time. It's like Mount Everest. When you're standing at the bottom of the foot of the mountain and you're looking up and it's like, oh my God, it's that big, huge, gigantic mountain, but then you just one step at a time. One bit at a time, you stop, you drink some water, you stop, you take a break, you stop, you wipe your brow, you move on. And so that's what I did. I just kind of started. And, the first thing that happened, in order for me to have this as a traditional publishing company where professors and academics will respect it and publish with it, it had to have a peer review board. Okay, so a peer review board, I mean, most academic works are reviewed by members of their peers, so, if Mark is a radio host and I'm a radio host and I want to be a radio host, then Mark would be one of the people who would interview me and see if I've got it cut out, like I'm cut out for the work, so a member of my peer would be interviewing me to see if that's what it works. So a peer review board, I mean, when you go to journals, when you talk about academic journals like the Journal of Black Study and the Journal of African Studies and all that stuff, those peers are blind reading people who submit books to the company and deciding if they can cut it. And Dr. Asante, of course, I mean, is a big part of my life and a big part of the publishing company. He said, we need to give voice to our people because, a lot of African Americans cannot get published. We started saying that, especially Black scholars. So if you can't get published, you can't get a teaching job, you can't get tenured, you can't get a promotion, and that's part of the whole trajectory of this. And he created a peer review board, himself being the chairman of the peer review board. And, people like Amalana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa, they got together and they said, we need this peer review board. So if you're going to come to the imprint, the academy, the peer review board is going to review that work.
So we have a peer review board as well as the advisory board.
That's right.
So it's two different boards.
That's right.
Two different purposes as Ayo just described.
Right. So then once we had the peer review board intact and now the company would be a respected member of the traditional publishing houses, now it's grown to that next step where it's like, oh my goodness, we need an advisor board. And everybody who are entrepreneurs or who are in business know that most big corporations have advisor boards. Even universities and colleges, if you go and you look like at Howard University, Felicia Richard is one of her advisor board members. We have all, and usually advisor board members, they're different type of board members. Usually sometimes you have a working board and you have a financial board, so the financial board will go out and raise money. And then the working board is kind of like what our board does. So, I am very, very grateful to have Mark, our future doctor, Marc Medley, or doctor in the rough. Our doctor-elect.
Ayo is one of three people that just they speak it constantly that I'm going to be. No, she's four people. It's Ayo, it's Reverend Randy Lassiter, it is, I'm trying to think, Mary Crooms and Taisha. I'm trying to think of her last name, Hilbert.
But I am first and number one because I was the first guest on the show.
No, she was the first one that said the doctor.
And that was even before I even thought about that I was going to be into that.
That's right. So, yeah, she is another one that has proclaimed it, that's forecasted it. But those four people consistently, Ayo, Mary Crooms, Taisha Hilbert, and Reverend Randy Lassiter, those four people, they have declared that I will be getting my doctorate. Matter of fact, they usually address me as Dr. Medley. Whenever I talk to Randy, Reverend Lassiter, that's what he calls me. When I talk to Taisha, that's what she calls. When I talk to Ayo, that's what she calls, and Mary Croom. So I guess, they got something going on because we believe in the power of words.
And we believe in confirmation.
Yes, we do. So the four of them got it going, but Ayo was the first.
And I'm competitive because I am a Howardite. And Howardites are competitive. We like to be the first, the number one, the alpha and the omega.
Now, you all are doing nominations also. Now, is that for anybody or is that something you can announce on here as well?
Oh, yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Okay.
So this is something that everyone can help us with. Universal Right Publishing. But before, let me just talk about my board. So Dr. Marc Medley, Dr. Kenzo O'Brien, Dr. Daryl Harris, my academic advisor, Alison Bram, who was, a journalist and a newly published author, Dr. Angelica Bean, our newest board member, and of course Cheyenne Rosier, my daughter and junior ambassador, and literally my right-hand person. That poor child has to wake up every day hearing me talk about ideas and what I'm doing and how I want to do it. And poor thing, she's the one that's actually doing my my research on copyrights and finding out which book hasn't had a copyright and which books are not in print and which one need to be formatted and all this stuff. So she had her job description wrong when you met with her on LinkedIn, because it's just going to be you and Allison who works on the media part of it, because of course you're a media. Come on, look at you. You're here. You're amazing. And then of course Allison being a journalist, and I've, worked previously, as a producer on, I think, the Tyra Banks show she worked. And of course then Dr. Angelica Bean, newly minted doctor, she's actually working on making sure people go on the website itself. So you have different type of media. You guys are like, social media, journalism, talk show, radio, and she's actually working on the website to drive people to go and review the books and buy from the website. The website is a fully functioning, e-commerce website. You can actually go to the store, and purchase your copy from the store, look at the library, and then it will give you suggestions, just like when you go on Amazon. You pick a book and then they will show you other books that fall along the same line or in the same genre. So I'm very, very excited about my advisory board members, and I'm so grateful that they believe in me enough to be willing to say, yes, I'm going to sacrifice more of their time, because everybody's busy. And, of course, in order for you to be asked to be on an advisory board, you have to be phenomenally within your own right anyway, so it's asking busy people to be more busy.
That's absolutely right. There are times she'll email me. Did you do this yet? No, I didn't get a chance, Ayo. Oh, you got to do it. Ayo, I'm trying to run to school. But she's absolutely right, because and now you ran off that list, and most of them were doctors. I'm getting a little jealous for sure now.
That's because another combination.
Cheyenne might beat me. She might get to the. We talked about that last week.
That's right, because she started high school at 12. Right? She graduated. She started college at 16. She's now a rising junior at Carnegie Mellon University doing neuroscience. I don't know where that child get that from. So she's 18 years old and a junior in college. Like, child, you need to go take like 3 or 4 seats. Sometimes it's hard to have a conversation with her, because I'm like, what are you talking about? Sometimes I'm like, wait, just give me 5 minutes. Let me walk you through the door. Let me put my bag down, because she's always running off these ideas. So, you're right. Everyone is a doctor except for you and Allison and Cheyenne. So we have 3 doctors and 3 non-doctors. Cheyenne says she's going to do the dual degree to the master's.
That's what we went through that last time on the phone. It's like, okay, it was one more semester. Like, well, okay, what about this aren't we getting? Did you say another year? No, 1 semester. Okay.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally. I was shocked when I heard it too, but it's because they do points and not credits, like most colleges and universities. But you're right in line.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have to get on Allison.
I know. I told you. Between you, Mary, Randy, and Taisha, the 4 of you, and now I'm sitting on a board with 3 out of the 6. 50% of the board are doctors, with one up and coming. And
the peer review board is also doctors.
That's right. So I'm just going to have to I'm going to have to, but just going to have to give in to it.
Yes, please.
Break down and do it,
And you can. You're one of the most brilliant, prolific, amazing, persistent person I know.
Well, thank you. And we've known each other for a long time.
That's right. Almost 20 years.
She's not saying that from like two minutes ago. She's
That's
saying
right.
that from like 20-something years.
Since Cheyenne was a baby.
That's
we
right.
met when she was 1.
She's right. She was a baby. You're right. So we were talking about the nominations. What is that?
Yes.
And you're going to have to explain that, because I need folks to really be clear on that, so that if you can nominate. But the only thing, and I don't know if it is not, but it's the scholar piece.
That's right.
So I need you to explain that real clear.
Okay, so, and Kenzo, of course, who was our acquisition editor and specialist, he's the one that's working on this project with me. Now, we talked a lot about Black voices, okay, and Afrocentric voices, people who are for Black people who and scholarship, and we don't get cited enough. We don't get talked about. So we have all these great books that you've mentioned, And most people will never know who these people are. And so therefore, other voices become prominent, and people will hear about the white scholar that's talking about Black history, instead of the Black scholar that's talking about Black history. If you want to know about Africa, you go to Africa, right? If you want to know about, Spain, you go to Spain. If you want to know about Black people, Black people should tell you, and I know Kenzo and you talked a lot about that as well. So the nomination is, we're putting together a resource manual, a book almost like a dictionary or a thesaurus. Everybody should have this in their classroom. Everybody should have this on their bookshelf, just like you do with a dictionary, right? And this resource manual will talk about across the academy, whether it's Spanish, English, math, psychology, philosophy. We're looking for the scholars that nobody knows. That people will not like Marc Medley. Dr. Marc Medley can also be placed in this book. He can be nominated, because if he's written something where people can actually cite him and research him, if you want to know about being a principal and he wrote a piece or an op-ed somewhere about, what it takes to be a principal or to teach students, then therefore Mark can be cited as long as we can reference him in the resource manual. We're looking for people to contact, Kenzo O'Brien, submissions at uwpbooks.com. Send your submissions to your ideas of who should be included in this resource manual to Kenzo O'Brien Selassie at submissions at uwpbooks.com. And we're looking for people to send us the nomination. If you know a professor, a teacher, a friend, anybody you think that has been an upliftment to Black people in Black scholarship, who talks about, teaching and educating, somebody who has written something. They do not have to have a PhD, and they can be from any field, philosophy, psychology, English, math. It does not matter what it is. They could be an high school principal. They could be a boxer. As long as they've written something prolific that you can actually cite, so that every student can have this book in their backpack, in their library, in their classroom, and they could go, I'm writing a paper on journalism. Oh my goodness, there is this guy, Marc Medley, who is a principal in New Jersey, who wrote an op-ed piece on how to be a principal in journalism, and then they could cite him. And then that way we can start educating each other and prolificizing our voices, throughout history and throughout the academy. We need to do that for ourselves. So we're looking for everyone to help us with that.
So the nomination has to have the name of the person?
The name of the person.
Something, a work they've cited?
Anything that they've written, right,
okay,
that we can cite.
Right.
And we need about, if you can do it, about 250 words, which is like what I mean, 250 words, a paragraph, about this person and why you're nominating them. Also, there will be a section in the back of the book for everyone who has made a nomination. So your name will also be listed in the book when you make a nomination. So please go to the website, Universal Right Publications, or uwpbooks.com, uwpbook.net, universalright.com, universalright.net. You can look at her blog page where we have all the interviews from everyone that we've done. We have, all the great things our advisory board is doing. We also have new releases, press releases, and we also have information about this upcoming project that we're doing, a resource manual that will be like a dictionary or a manual that will tell you about, and we need the community to come together and do this. We really, really need the community to step in and let us know, because we don't know everybody, but somebody knows somebody. Right? And we need you to go ahead, email us, submissions at uwpbooks.com. You could even email me, Ayo Sekai at gmail.com. You could contact Mark. You could contact Allison on the advisory board. Allison's our actual PR person. So if you go to the PR page on our website, you'll see Allison's name and contact and phone number. You can contact her. You can contact Cheyenne. You can contact any of the advisory board members. Please, if you know somebody that's touched your life, you have a teacher, a high school principal, you have a mentor, you have a friend who has a degree, who teaches a school that's just getting a doctorate. You know somebody that you believe has been important and has an impact in your life that should have impact on other people's lives, and should be mentioned in this book. please send the information on. If you cannot remember Ayo Sekai, AYOSEKAI at gmail.com, or you cannot remember submissions at uwpbooks.com, go on our website. All the email addresses are there, and it's just uwpbooks, easy to remember, .com. UWP Books.
Right. I mean, U is 3 letters, and 2 of the letters are at the end of the alphabet. I'm trying to give you a tickler to remember. So you could say umbrella. You could say, I'm trying to think for W, waiter, P,
right.
Party.
Publishing.
Publishing. I mean, it's universal right. I'm just trying to give you something so that if you like, what did they say again? Because I know like on radio, folks be like, what? No, UWP. Okay. UWPbooks.com. Universal Right Publishing. All right. And our time sails. It's already 8:16 because we're coming down to the end. Yeah. We're coming down to the end of the interview. And I'm going to go over again the books that are on the website. And then I'm going to turn the mic over to Ayo in terms of she can promote, because that's pretty much what we've been doing anyway. But she's really going to give you an opportunity to give all the reach numbers, contact information again, the websites, any appearances, book signings of folks, anything, any shout outs, anything that she wants to do. I'm going to turn the mic off. But the books are, I have 17 Dry Seasons. That was just released. I remember that one. 400. I remember 400 Years of Witnessing too. You sent me that one too. So that's just released. 400 Years of Witnessing. Got Math. That was the original.
Got Math, and I remember those 2 books. Right.
And you're published. Those 3 are kind of like 3 of the originals there.
That's
you're
right.
published now what?
Mm-hmm, that's me.
Bumblebee Longhorn Needle. That Cheyenne. We talked about it in the Cheyenne book series. Dragon of Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Slayer. Untamed. The Dramatic Genius of Charles Fuller. All right.
That's a playwright.
Oh,
that's a playwright who has been prolific in our history that nobody knows about. So please
see, there you go. See, we could go on for the next 2 hours because we think alike. We're on the same page. There are folks out there that, like the title says, genius, and she just said playwright. Wouldn't know about it, but you learn so much by reading. You meet so many people and travel so many places and don't have to get up off of your couch. Mm-hmm. If you would open up the book.
That's right.
If you would open up the book and read it, it'll take you places that you may never travel to. You'll meet people that you may never meet. Here's one of them, The Dramatic Genius of Charles Fuller. Then we have what we talked about with the pyramids.
That's right.
Normally, you were talking about the Sphinx. Normally, I have a necklace that I normally wear. It's the pyramid and a Sphinx. Mm-hmm. I didn't put any of my jewelry on this morning, but African pyramids of knowledge. They still haven't figured out how those pyramids were built.
The brilliance of
right. Mathematically, like we don't know. And they're still standing.
That's right.
This was before construction equipment. There were no trucks, at least not as we know of them. All right. So African pyramids of knowledge, lynching Barack Obama. And I said earlier, the more they try to do that, the better he's looking. The more Donald Trump tries to make Obama look bad, the better Obama looks. It's amazing. And Trump doesn't realize it. The more he's trying to make Obama look bad, the better he's making him look. Then we have revolutionary pedagogy. Primer for Teachers of Black Children. Oh, I'm happy to get that book.
And I should have brought you a set of books. That book is actually being taught by one of my dissertation committee advisor, Dr. Shockley, chemist Shockley, who's prolific in his own right. And he actually is teaching that book in his classes. And it's a very powerful book because Dr. Sante is about communication and education. You need that.
Are these 2 the same, or is it volume 1, volume 2?
Yeah, one of them is an ebook. One of them is an ebook.
Okay, I will, like with my new school.
God bless you.
With my new school, we have like the cough button, the sneeze button, you see. But in any event, in my new school, there's only about 10 teachers, 10 if that. So for me to now do book studies is going to be real easy. I only need to order 10 copies. So I definitely, and that's what we're going to be doing. I told you earlier about turning these boys into princes and then kings.
That's right.
So I have a primer for teachers of Black children. Definitely. Then we have the American Demagogue. And then we will tell our own story. The Lions of Africa Speak.
And that book has a lot of scholars from Africa in that book. It's a phenomenal piece.
See, again, we need to know our history. News Chaser. Now, that one we broke here.
That's right.
We had all the contributors. They've come on.
Actually, now there's like 23.
There's some more that we need to get scheduled.
Oh, yes, we do need to get them scheduled because right now, everything that's happening right now, we're watching it play out on the stage in politics. It's in that book.
Ayo and I have a funny story about the person who wrote the foreword to that book.
That's right.
But in any event, and I've been trying to get him to come on the show. He won't. Now, this is the thing. He won't talk to me. He won't email me back. He won't do anything. But Ayo got in touch with him immediately. Oh, yes, I'll do the foreword. He won't look and won't give me the time of day.
I'm telling you, you need to get that letters. I'm telling you, just being a PhD student, people pick up the phone. As soon as you get those letters behind your name, Mark, you'll get it.
I tried to get Michael D'Antonio to come on the show because if you ever look on CNN, he's one of the contributors because he wrote a book about Trump, The Truth About Trump. I think that was the name of it, something like that. So whenever Ayo had asked me to do a blurb on it a radio show host, I had mentioned in there Michael's name. So Ayo gets in touch with Michael. And like I said, Michael would not respond to me for nobody's money. Ayo calls him one time. He's like, oh, yes, sure. Anyway, he did the forward on that. If you ever look at CNN, Michael D'Antonio is one of them that comes on there all the time when they're talking about Trump. So that's News Chaser, the rhetoric of Trump.
Can I just interrupt really quick? The News Chaser, I want to say really one thing about Afrocentricity. Michael D'Antonio is a Eurocentric white man, okay? And, people will go, oh, you're talking about Afrocentricity and being black and you've got a white person on here. Well, let me tell you something. This is another thing you need to know about Afrocentricity. You do not need a color to be Afrocentric. Right. Okay? Anybody can be Afrocentric as long as you believe that everybody have the right to their freedom, justice, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and you're willing to stand up for the right of others. You are Afrocentric. The people who march with Martin Luther King, who sacrificed their lives of different color, races, and creed, they were Afrocentric. So it's very important to understand that nuance as well.
Absolutely. So that's News Chaser. Make sure you get a copy of that. I'm telling you, get a copy of all of them, but certainly go to the website. And then we have A Quest Toward Endarkenment. Ooh, I love the word. Yeah. Not enlightenment, endarkenment. Afrocentric before Afrocentricity.
And that's my portrait book. Talk about like Queen. Queen, like I have walked the lands of milk and honey. Santawe is my name, wielding knife and swords of the ascended spirit. That's the kind of stuff that I write, but I learn it. But, as I was writing this book, I was talking to my mentor, Dr. Sante, and he goes, and I said, this book, it should be a quest towards enlightenment. And he was like, what's enlightenment? He was like, what's that? If we're talking about counter narrative and we're talking about history, you're talking about enlightenment. And I said, what should I say? And he said the opposite. And I said, endarkenment? And who knows? He helped me create a word that is now going to be a big part of my dissertation.
I love the word endarkenment. And there are a lot, and I love the word. I tell you, I'm a wordsmith. I really love words.
You are.
I love words. And that stems from reading and speaking and everything else. But when I saw that, A Quest Toward Endarkenment.
That's right.
I know. See, again, back to this whole notion of, well, we don't need to talk about the slave story. Yeah, you do. You need to understand what it's all about. Mm-hmm. And as Ayo just said, and please, we constantly fight this battle. Mm-hmm. Just because, a fraternity brother who's passed and gone now said it best. I am not anti-white, but I am pro-black.
That's right.
And me being pro-black does not mean I don't like white people. That's not it. That's
right.
Not the issue. So folks, don't get that twisted. But at the same time, because our story has always been so depressed.
That's right.
Always so kept away from, because even it is now making more curriculums, but even in curriculums, when we were coming, and I'm older than you, Ayo, when I was coming to the school, you never know black people did anything other than Crispus Attucks. We had Crispus Attucks. Martin Luther King was still kind of like a lie. He had just gotten killed whenever I was in second grade, or something like that. So even that name wasn't as prolific as it is now. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't think we did anything based on our history books. So we had George Washington, we had Thomas Jefferson, we had the whole lineup of Christopher Columbus.
Right.
Had the whole lineup. It was nothing that looked like, did we do anything?
The dominant language will promote their own culture.
Did we contribute anything? And come to find out, we contribute everything.
That's right.
So, that's what we're talking about. So because of the fact that you have folks who promote their various cultures and histories, and I advocate that everybody, whether you're Italian, whether you're Spanish, whether you're Asian, whether you're Polish, whatever.
LGBTQ.
You need to be proud of your culture and your heritage.
That's right.
And as she just said, That's what Afrocentricity is all about. And of course, we just talked about the revolutionary pedagogy.
And that's the ebook version.
That's the ebook version. So if you go to the site, you'll see all those. I'm going to show you. I can't believe how quickly time has flown. And that's the thing guests always say, like, you know, when you first told me we we're going to be talking for an hour, he said, what are we going to talk about for an hour? You see, it goes quickly.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
So I'm going to turn the mic off. You get to promote in any manner you wish with the exception of the dollar amount. We can't say cost here. They can work that out with you when they get you. With the exception of a dollar amount, you can promote whatever you'd like.
But we're not going to talk about money anyway. That's not an issue here. That's not an issue here, because if you call me up and you contact the company and say, you know what, I cannot afford it, but I would really like a copy of this book. If you call us up and you send an email, I mean, there's a way for you to actually contact us on the website. You can go and you can register and send your contact information. I will personally put a book in the mail for you. If you're a professor, a student, if you're a student and you cannot afford a book and you think that this is something that's going to help you towards a paper and it's going to help you with this, you know, something that you're doing, or, you know, a challenge that you're going through and you're struggling with trying to learn something, I will put a copy of that book in the mail for you. All you have to do is reach out. So money is not the topic here. Money is not going to break us teaching, because that's the main priority here. The teaching, the educating, the enhancement, and getting the word out about the voices of Black people. You know, so please do not let that stop you. Contact us. You know, we love everyone who love to read, you know, and write. And you do not have to be white Black to contact us either. You can be white, Indian, Chief, Chinese, LGBTQ. We love you. As a matter of fact, you know, we have scholars that, you know, wrote in News Chaser who are LGBTQ. We're trying to get the voice out about that too. We're trying to get the voice out about Afropunk. There is so much out there about what we do. So please contact us. Go to the website, Universal Right Publications, LLC. It's an academic peer-reviewed publishing company, one of the top 5 in the country, one of the only one that exists that's owned by a Black female, CEO and publisher, you know, and is in the game with some of the top, you know, traditional publishing houses in the country.
That's the story that needs to be told. And that's coming. That's the sequel. That's what's coming. I keep telling Ayo, that's the story we got to tell. Like she just said, top 5 in the country, owned, operated, CEO, African American female. So that's the next part of the saga.
That's right. That's right.
So, again, it's almost 8:30. Ayo to me is like one of my best friends. She's like family. I love her to life.
Love Mark. Really, and he's better become a doctor.
She's going to keep on pushing me on that one. But I love Ayo to life. One of my best friends. Like I said, if you felt the energy on the telephone, I'm quite sure you probably felt it with her live here in the studio. Wonderful Renaissance woman. The company is Universal Right Publications, LLC. You graduate in May?
Next year.
May, right?
Pray for me, people. I'm defending the first half of my dissertation in the fall. Pray for me. I need all the prayers, all the prayer warriors. Bring out that African spirit. You know you got it.
I know that's right. And you know what? And that's another point. Ayo came up because her mom is having some health challenges. So pray for her mom as well.
Thank you.
In terms of, as you're praying for her as she defends or about to defend her dissertation, pray for Ayo's mom as well, because she's having some health issues as we get older. We all do. So
yeah, but this is one of those things, you know, cancer, you know, and I mean, she was in remission and now it's come back and she's back on chemotherapy. But, you know, I know so many people that's going through this. We're making another trip to visit, you know, another friend in Tennessee, you know, who we're hoping will, you know, survive long enough, because people are pressing us and telling us that it's imminent. You know, I mean, there's so many people that this disease has touched.
Right.
You know, and we're all dealing with it. I'm getting phone calls from so many friends and family. You know, I go to Golden Crust, you know, and the grill in
right.
my neighborhood, and the people who I work with that eat from serve me, and
right.
I'm getting bad news about that. You know, something needs to be done about that, and we need to stop treating symptoms and start treating the cause.
I know that's right.
Yeah.
So keep Ayo's mom in your prayers as well. Keep Ayo in your prayers in terms of her dissertation and everything else, the business and everything. And do support. If you're one of them in the listening audience who is contemplating writing a book, give Ayo a call. If you know of the scholars that we were talking about in terms of nominations, give them a call, email, and get them in that book. There's a young lady, I don't know her personally, but I've gotten to know her over the internet. And I think I'm going to nominate her. I just got to see. It's Dr. Jennifer Caudle. Some of you know her. And you would recognize her name. Let's put it that way, because she's been on Dr. Oz, this, that, and the other. And I've gotten closer with her, and we've never met face to face, never talked to each other. I'm going to see if I can get her on the show. But I think, and I told Ayo this the other day, I think that's who I'm going to try to write up and nominate. She has no idea. She don't know me from Adam's
But I
house
need
cat.
10 from you. I need 10 from you. So you got
then if
some
that's
work.
the case, that's only 1 out of 10. That means I got 9 more to go.
And I'm nominating my primary care physician, a female doctor that has, that owns her own practice, and she actually, hires only, African American, people to work in her practice. My girlfriend that was, like I've known since college, she opened her own practice in Chicago. She's a psychologist, so somebody.
Right.
Somebody.
Again, if you have that professional person, if they're published, that they could be in this directory of folks, because it's just like the directory of occupations. There are so many occupations out there that kids have no idea exist. There are so many people out there who are doing great things, who look like them. No ideal exists.
That's right.
So that's what that compilation, that's what that book is going to be like. Ayo, I wish you nothing but the best. Like I said, one of my girls always say the besties, BFFs and all that. Right. BFFs and all that.
Best friend for life.
Ayo is one of my BFFs, just happens to be of the female gender. Like family. Again, seriously, she really is like family. And so pray for her mom, and keeping her positive thoughts and prayers. All right, well, with that, we got to be out of here. Barry be coming in another half hour or so with the Naked Brunch. That's his name of his show, the Naked Brunch. All right, so he'll be coming in.
Talking about double entendres.
All right, have a great day, Ayo.
Thank you, Mark.